Let's talk about investing in getting more kids into school. Grappling with the real cost of higher education is something that a lot of parents, a lot of students themselves have to deal with. As we think about the future, Arne Duncan, of higher education, how do we start to bend that curve back and make it so that more people can just afford to get the types of education that we're talking about today?
So I have lots of thoughts on this. We'll try not to go on too long. The first thing is I always say that budgets aren't budgets. Budgets reflect our values. And what you've seen in the vast, I don't know Connecticut stats, but the vast majority of states over the past 20 or 30 years, the amount of money that we spend on incarceration has gone up exponentially, and the amount of money we spend on education and higher ed specifically has gone down. Mm-hmm. And when states stop investing, what happens? Universities pass that bill on to parents, and it costs more for them. And so until we hold elected officials accountable for investing at every level of early childhood, every level of education, early childhood, K-12, higher ed, until we hold folks accountable, we'll continue to have the wrong thing. And somehow we as citizens and voters never question locking people up at $50,000, $60,000 a year, but somehow we question educating them at the front end for $8,000 or $10,000 or $12,000. Mm-hmm. So that's a... And I want to be very clear here. I don't blame the politicians. I blame us as voters. That's our fault. Republican, Democrat, left, right, doesn't matter. If we demanded they invest in education, they would do that. We don't demand that. So one, I think we really have to own that. The second thing specifically on higher education is at the federal level, where we're the major investor, all of us as taxpayers, $150 billion in grants and loans each year. All of that is based upon inputs. It's all based upon enrollment. None of it is on outcomes. And I would love to find ways to get universities that are taking more first-generation college goers, more Pell recipients, more folks going into STEM fields like Freeman is doing. We should be investing more in those universities to help them do more. But there are no incentives for those places that are really breaking the mold and being disruptive and being creative. And there are no disincentives for those that simply enroll and have people walk out. We invest in universities that have 9% completion rates, 10% completion rates, all of us. And somehow that's okay. So the federal level, the incentives, I think, aren't aligned to what's in the best interest of young people. The final thing I'll say is that universities have to start to have their status based not upon exclusion, but around inclusion. And all of the rankings are based upon what percent of students you don't admit. And the more students you don't admit, the better you are. Something's wrong with that picture. It should be how many students are you admitting, and what are you doing not just to admit them, but have them be successful. Those are the kinds of just big changes I think we have to see made.